Did you know some handguns are so unreliable they'll fail you when you need them most? And then there are others that just can't handle the heat when it matters? Today, we're talking about those guns, ones you should avoid at all costs. These handguns are infamous for jamming, misfiring, or flat out breaking down when you least expect them to. I've tested them, dropped them, and pushed them to the limit. The result? They didn't hold up. I'm about to reveal the top 10 handguns you don't want in your collection. Number 6 will completely change the way you think about handgun reliability. You're gonna want to see this. At first, I didn't think much of the ADI GSG Firefly. It's a 22 LR pistol that's advertised as a fun, cheap alternative to larger calibers. I thought it would be a wonderful pick for a casual day at the range. It cost about $200 and promised to work well in a compact, easy-to-hide box. How terrible might it actually get? Well, I'm gonna tell you how horrible it is. I was eager to have fun the first time I brought it to the range. I put 115 grain FMG in it and started firing. The recoil was quick. After that, things went wrong. I had a failure to feed after only a few rounds. There was a round trapped halfway in the chamber. I assumed it wasn't a huge deal. I mean, it happens, but then it happened again and again. I had cleared more gems than I had shots by the time I was done with one magazine. I changed the ammo since I thought the cheap stuff might be the problem. The same thing happened again. It failed to feed, and now it failed to extract. The casing would stay stuck in the chamber, and I had to manually expel it, which made the whole thing even worse. I was getting angry at this point. This was more than just a small problem. It looked like the pistol was about to break down with every sort of cartridge that I put through it. I looked it up online, and of course, I wasn't the only one. People were posting on the websites about the same difficulties, misfeeds, extraction problems, and a general lack of reliability. Some people suggested polishing the feed ramp or using high-velocity ammo, but after hearing this, I realized that no matter what you do, it's still a gamble. The Raven MP25 is one of those guns that seems unbelievable to be true, and it is. You could assume you're buying a cheap one. This 25 ACP pistol is great for plinking or as a backup, but you'll soon learn the hard way that this gun's bad reputation is no joke. I remember reading a story about some guy who chose the Raven MP25 as his first gun. He was happy about the price tag because you can't beat that kind of value for a 25 ACP. He went to the range where he thought he would have fun shooting cans, but as soon as he pressed that trigger, something went wrong. The first shot went off wrong, and then the second, and then the third. He kept cleansing the chamber, and each time he felt more and more frustrated. He thought maybe it's just the ammo, so he changed it. No change, more misfires. By the end of the day, what had been entertaining had become frustrating. He could barely get through a whole magazine without having to clear a gem because the gun was so unstable. But there were more problems than just misfires. As he kept shooting, he saw something worse. The frame started to fracture. This pistol wasn't made to last. It was falling apart after just a few bullets. He tried everything, like cleaning it, using different kinds of ammo, and even running it with a lighter recoil spring. But the Raven MP25 was still just as bad. It was obvious that it wasn't a weapon that could be used every day, let alone for self-defense. Do you think you found the best budget-friendly concealed carry gun? Think about it again. The SECY CPX-1 may seem like a cheap alternative for everyday carry, but it's actually one of the least reliable guns on the market. Don't be fooled by the price. This pistol will give you more trouble than it's worth. A friend of mine who was all about getting the cheapest gun that still worked told me about the CPX-1. He went on and on about how fantastic it was for invisible carry, so I decided to give it a try. What hit me first? The cost. Every time I tried to shoot, it was stiff, lengthy, and felt like I was pulling the handbrake on a truck. not the smooth, clear experience you desire when you put your life in the hands of your gun. But the trigger is only the first of several complications. I could hardly read a few magazines without getting into problems with feeding. And I'm not talking about cheap bullets or even weird loads. I'm talking about standard range ammo that any pistol should be able to handle without any problems. But nope, I had to clear a jam every few photos. It seemed as if the CPX-1 couldn't keep up. Things didn't get better after the first time we went on the range. After a few hundred rounds, the problems just kept happening. And what about the quality of the build? The frame just couldn't take it. It seemed cheap, like it was only meant to last till it broke. Cleaning, changing ammo, or exchanging parts didn't appear to help at all. This gun wasn't going to work, it was made to fail. You wish you had never bought this gun. The DB9 from Diamondback? It looked like the perfect answer. Lightweight, small, and strong enough to perform the job. At first glance, this micro-compact 9mm has everything you could want. It's stylish, easy to hide, and only costs $305. But after using it for a while, I immediately understood that this handgun wasn't as great as it seemed. A friend of mine who loved the DB9 let me try it out. He continued saying how fantastic it was to carry it, how light it was, and how easy it was to hide. I thought to myself, okay, let's see if it's really as good as everyone says. But I was already angry after just a few rounds. The recoil was more than I thought it would be, and by the third magazine, I had my first failure to feed. The round became trapped in the chamber, so I had to clean it by hand. Not great, especially if you want a pistol that you can trust, but I wasn't ready to give up just yet. I changed to federal ammo with 124 grains, hoping it might help, but that was a big mistake. What's the next problem? Not being able to extract. The casing became stuck in the chamber, so I had to take it out by hand. Without a slide stop, limp wristing was a big problem that made it hard to keep the DB9 functioning smoothly. It wasn't just one fluke either, it was starting to happen all the time. I heard online that some individuals did better with premium ammo and a stronger grip, so I tried that. The pistol operated just a little better, but the harsh magazine release hurt my finger, which made it hard to shoot for lengthy periods of time. Even after trying to find the right ammo and grip, the DB9 still didn't work well at the time. Jake had been sneaking a gun that he could carry in his pocket that would be good for his late-night security jobs. He was drawn to the Remington R51 because of its beautiful aluminum frame and old-fashioned Pedersen action. It looked sleek, tiny, and light, which made it great for carrying around every day. It was the right mix of power and practicality at only 6.6 inches long and 22 ounces. Also, the pricing was right at $325 after the discount. Jake was excited and ready to try it out, but his first trip to the range blew those hopes out of the water. Jake put 115 grain F&G bullets in the R51, thinking everything would go smoothly. The first magazine, on the other hand, jammed and wouldn't feed. The round became trapped in the chamber. He thought it was a one-time mistake, so he switched to Hornady ammo with 124 grains, but it didn't work. Another problem came up, not being able to extract. A case stuck on the slide like it didn't want to leave, so he had to clear it again. The problem started getting worse for Jake by the time he got the 300 rounds. The R51 just couldn't get it together, even after changing his grip and trying different kinds of ammo. The slide felt harsh, the cycling wasn't always smooth, and it seemed like every round was a risk. Jake had hoped that the R51 would be a good gun to use during his shifts, but it kept breaking down, so he knew it wasn't up to the task. He was always having to clear jams, so he couldn't really trust it. The DB9 felt well in my hand and gripped well at 7 yards when it worked, but the problems were too great a risk. Officer Maria Delgado had always trusted her K9 partner Rex, a German Shepherd with sharp eyes, as much as her own gut. She believed the Taurus Spectrum 380 would be the perfect gun to carry when she wasn't working. It stood out because of its vivid teal grip panels and sleek small 5.4-inch frame. Maria did the same thing at work. It was only 10 ounces, which was lighter than her duty Glock and promised to be easy to carry. How much? Only $230, which is cheap and seems to be a good backup for late-night patrols. Maria was all in, praying that its 380 ACP punch would come through when she needed it most. On a hot and humid night, Maria and Rex were sent to look for a suspect in an empty warehouse. Rex's nose was on high alert, which led her to a pile of containers. Maria pulled out the Spectrum for a quick backup shot when they cornered a shadow, but the pistol had other problems. It wouldn't feed. The ride stopped halfway through, and no matter how hard Maria pulled on the slide, it wouldn't move. She cursed under her breath and looked over at Rex, who had already taken care of the suspect by pinning him to the ground. The Spectrum didn't pass its initial test that night. Maria knew she could trust Rex more than her Taurus Spectrum. It was a peaceful night, one of those nights when everything seems to be in its right position and nothing seems out of place. I was with some friends at a little diner, laughing and talking about odd things when the door opened. A man came with wide eyes and a jacket that was out of place. At first, I assumed he was simply another intoxicated person who needed food, but then I noticed the gun he was holding. A theft, right there in the middle of dinner. At that moment, my instincts took over. I grabbed for the Taurus G3C that was safely tucked into my waistband, sure that I could calm things down swiftly. It felt like the right tool to end the threat because it was heavy and had a rubber grip. I took it out and pointed it at the thief. I had 5 shots and I was ready to end this right away. But then things went awry. I squeezed the trigger, click, nothing. The hammer fell, but the slide stayed still. My heart skipped a beat. I tried again, click, nothing yet. The terror set in. The man was suddenly focused on me and my mind raced. What was I going to do? I was stuck in the moment, attempting to fix the problem, but it was too late. My friend, who had been seated across from me, jumped in before I could do anything. He knocked the thief down and held him until the cops got there. The Taurus G3C, like many of the company's guns, had a history of problems that were worrying. I was at a shooting range with some pals on a Saturday afternoon. We were all in a good mood, telling stories and trying out each other's guns. I had brought my Taurus Model 450 with me to the session. It was a .45 Colt revolver that I had always trusted. It had never disappointed me at the range, and the strength of the large round made me feel good. That day, though, the Taurus was anything but dependable. I remember putting the handgun back in its holster after a first few bullets and securing the safety in place. I assumed the gun was safe. It was supposed to be, at least. The safety should have made sure that nothing happened. I was talking to a friend when the gun went off without warning. I couldn't believe what I saw as I looked down. The safety was still on. I hadn't shot yet, but there it was. An unexpected shot that shocked everyone around me. The round went off when it wasn't supposed to, and I wasn't the only one who was scared by it. I remember reading about Taurus revolvers like the 450 having the same problem later on. The safety, which was designed to keep the gun from going off by accident, wasn't as good as it looked. People had even had firearms go off when they thought they were locked up or when the safety was on. I couldn't get rid of the idea that this wasn't the kind of reliability I expected from a gun, especially one I relied on for protection. It made me think of the sad event in 2015 when 11-year-old DJ Sims died. His father had been trying to put the magazine in his Taurus revolver when it went off without warning or pulling the trigger. It was a sad event that could have been avoided. This gun was meant to be perfect. The 6-hour P320 was a popular choice for personal protection, law enforcement, and military use. It had a good reputation for being elegant and versatile, but for Robert Lang, that trust was broken in the worst way possible. Lang was just going about his business on a peaceful night in December 2018. After a long day at work, he got home and started to adjust his belt so he could take off his P320, which he carried for protection. The gun was in a holster and the safety was on, which is normal. But when Lang grabbed for the grip, something terrible happened. The pistol went off. It wasn't a mistake. Lang's fingers were nowhere near the trigger when the gun went off while it was still in his holster. The bullet went through Lang's right thigh and came out slightly above his knee. His wife and young boy were home when the gunshot went off, and they all panicked when they heard it. Lang was taken to the hospital right away, treated, and sent home that same night, but the physical and mental wounds stayed on. People noticed the Desert Eagle 50AE as soon as it comes into the room. It's chambered in the powerful 50 Action Express, which gives it a lot of recoil and makes it stand out. You might believe it's merely a showcase at first, a handgun that looks wonderful but isn't designed to be used. And in a lot of respects, that's precisely what it is. When you pull the trigger on the Desert Eagle, you're simply not shooting a gun, you're fighting with it. The recoil is strong and the gun is heavy, so it seems like you're holding a miniature cannon. This isn't the kind of gun you want to use for quick, accurate shots. It's a slow, thoughtful encounter that needs to be respected. Gun lovers and Hollywood movies love the Desert Eagle, but it's not the best gun for self-defense or everyday carry. It's too big, too heavy, and honestly, too much for most individuals to handle well. It's more of a way to start a conversation than a useful sidearm. These guns may look great on paper, but when you really need them, they'll let you down. Don't put your safety at risk. Stay away from these guns that don't work. Want more honest reviews of guns and professional advice? Click subscribe to get the latest news about the finest and worst guns ever. I'm Steve, and stay safe out there.